Hello, everyone, and thank you for choosing spending time with me. Hope you won't regret it. How was your vegan food? Muhahaha. Because I'm vegan, so I'm okay with all of you. You okay? Feel sleepy or just vegetables? All right. Let's do a quick show of hand. How many of you read the description for this session? All right. So I have to deliver. Today we're gonna talk about. Oh no, that's not the right slide. We're gonna talk about the KISS principles. Now that's gonna be, I hope so, like a lighter fun talk because it's not too deeply technical session, and all of you after lunch. And it's basically I want us to kind of open our mind and start to think a little bit of how we destroyed frontend completely. So, so this is the agenda. We made frontend unnecessarily complicated, and that's it. Thank you very much. I was Nir, and all of you can go away. No, I'm kidding. Quick introduction, so we've got a context. My name is Nir Kaufman. I work as a front-end tech lead at a startup called Next Insurance, fintech and stuff. 50 years as a web developer, which means that it's okay that I'm grumpy and I'm going to complain a lot because I earned it, right? How many people here are doing web development for more than, I don't know, 8 years? Yeah, so we all grumpy old developers. All of you are front-end developers? Or we've got any back-end product or some? Oh, all right. So I will skip the jokes when it comes to your department. So we all know that being a web developer is not stressing at all. It's a known fact. Oh. For me, after 15 years, what I like to do to relax, I'm addicted to analog synthesized, no computers. So if you want to talk about this later on, you're welcome. And going to find myself out in the desert, but carrying my laptop with me. John Lennon once said, there are no bad practices, only trade-offs. It's not really John Lennon said, yeah? I made it up. Don't look for it in Wikipedia, just to make sure. So let's start with a short story. Once upon a time, far, far away, there wasn't any front-end or back-end developers, all right? There wasn't even any full-stack developers. We were all just software developers that occasionally build software for the web. No front-end, no back-end, and this is all made up. It's I don't know. And if you remember the old good times, you just sent some HTML to the browser and everyone was happy. I mean, I was happy. Now I'm not. I started my career with JSP. So, server-side rendering, everything was fun. I was young, the web was slow. This is not me, this is just an illustration, all right? Maybe I should put a disclaimer. This is not me. The presenter of the picture is someone else. Hope they won't sue me for copyright. And then November 1996. What's happening in November 1996? What? A lot of things, but Flash. And then I moved to Flash. And then I become what used to known as a RIA developer. Is there anyone here who remember this title? It was before front-end. RIA, Rich Internet Applications. We were RIA developers, the new age. Yeah. And who knows what happened with ECMAScript with E4X? ECMAScript 357 or something. We're talking about years ago. You know what was implemented here in this version? JSX. Way, way before React. It was implemented as part of ECMAScript. I wrote JSX as part of ActionScript. But it was before its time, not that popular like today. And then we continue our story. Steve Jobs killed Flash and basically killed my career as a Flex developer. But I'm still using Apple product because I like it. All right, so still no front-end, no back-end, but no Flash anymore. We can't build RIA, so we need to reinvent ourselves. And we had those full-blown web app frameworks We didn't call them a full stack, but Ruby on Rails is still alive and kicking. And to be honest, if tomorrow I would like to start my own startup or product, I'm probably going to choose this framework, although I feel comfortable with Angular, React, Ember, you name it. Let's continue. JS, my friends, change everything. And now we should all ask ourselves, what is front-end today? Exactly. Because there is a huge difference between UI and UX. This one is for the baby, yeah? A huge difference, my friends. That's not the same thing. So front-end developers, it means that basically we build user interfaces. What is a user interface in 2022, almost 2023? For example, this is a user interface. This is how a user interacts with the software, but it's activated by voice. So if you work for, I don't know, Alexa, Google Home, and you develop this kind of voice action, are you a front-end developer? Why not? It's a user interface. You are at the front end, all right? But now, these guys, I'm a mobile developer. I build for iOS. I'm not a front-end developer dealing with all of this JavaScript and stuff. So front-end developers, do we build graphical user interface specifically for browsers, or is it something more than this? Today, we build applications for the browser. And now the fun begins in our story. Don't worry, we're going to get to the KISS principles, I promise you. We've got plenty of time ahead. Who's seen this movie? Yeah. This is Sparta. Front end. All right? Let's make it complicated so we can earn the title front-end developers, so we can ask for high salaries and keep our job. Because otherwise, no. I mean, come on. Why do we love JavaScript? Who wants to answer? I'm going to repeat it for the video. Why do you love JavaScript? You love JavaScript, yeah? I hope so. I don't know. All of you love to work with JavaScript? Raise your hand. All right. That's the wrong audience. 2010, the age of the frameworks. Yeah? I'm going to do it even more dramatically. The age of the frameworks emerged. Knockout, Backbone.js, Angular.js, and Ember 2011. It's that old. Yeah, Ember, it's still live and kicking. Actually, LinkedIn built with Ember, which doesn't mean anything, because who care about frameworks? Who care about programming language? It's not our users. Our users care about one thing. I want the software to work, to be usable, to be fast, and that's it. They don't care if we build it with PHP or the latest Angular or whatever. We are the problem. We are the world. What's in common with this framework is that we took a known architecture patterns like MVC, MVVM, and then it evolved to MV whatever. Is there anyone here who's not familiar with this MVC? Just raise your hand. Yeah, well, most of us are old and grumpy, but some of you were born into the age of MVC. Now, to talk about MVC in a front-end conference these days, that's a big no-no. No? You're not cool enough. You're not hipster. MVC is for the old people. MVC stands for basically separation, all right? So that's like one of the most popular diagrams that explain MVC. So it's all around the model. So you model your data, and you've got some kind of relationship between your views, some middleware, let's call it a controller, and then your data. A great pattern. It still exists, it's still valid, it's battle-proof, it's being used in other server-side web development frameworks, but we don't talk about it anymore. That's another way to draw it, maybe even more clear, right? Layers, but that doesn't look cool enough, and we have to be cool. We have to complicate things. Backbone even took it a step farther, and they said we don't even need a controller. Let's keep it as simple as possible. Let's create a model, something that models your data, and let's create a view layer, presentation layer, and let them interact with each other. And we can build complex things in an easy manner. And if you've got more than one model, let's put them inside a collection and then interact with this collection. And you know what could be interesting? How many of you work with React? Raise your hand. React, Next.js, whatever, most of you. Any Angular developers here? Any PHP developers here? Yeah, more jokes to skip. But it might be interesting to look at how Backbone would look like in 2023. Let's open this one up. So I created this nice repo. I can share this code with you later on. How many of you never seen like Backbone.js? Was born into the new era of JavaScript? There's at least 50%, all right? This is Backbone. I was about to say this is Sparta, but that was the previous slide. So this is how a modern Backbone application would look like. So I'm extending a class called model and then get a bunch of nice methods out of the box. So I can fetch and I can get and I can check if it has changed. You know, it's simple inheritance. So I created this task model, and then I created a collection. This is how a collection in Backbone looks like. And again, it's an old, like 12 years old framework. It's not component architectural, whatever modern framework. It's like the basics when MVC just started. And look, the beauty of it, you've got a RESTful API implemented for you, because let's be honest. Most of the time, at least in my career, I believe 80% of the system that I build, REST, like the most simple REST API, that's more than enough. I don't need more than this, to be honest. Someone need to be honest. It's not recorded, yeah? It's not broadcasted. Let's keep it between us. All right, so this is how a collection look like. And to make it even more fun, I created a controller, but the controller is a React hook. I call it use tasks, because I want to take the good things, the simple concept of Backbone, create a model, create a collection, get all this RESTful API for free, but then I want to connect it to a library dedicated for building a UI. So this is how I might build with React and Backbone today. And who remember the first website of React.js? Someone here remember what was the main page? When you surfed to React, when it was just introduced, it was React is the V for your MVC. So that was the first slogan. Again, that's the era of Backbone. React was designed to be, like initially, there's just going to be the viewer. So you can use, the first project with React, we used Backbone, and then React, without hooks, obviously. It was the beginning. So I created this kind of controller, because that's the same concept. It's going to be the kind of middleware between my view and my model. And here's a React component that consumes it. And to be honest, I can promise you that I can scale it up and build beautiful, complex app just with the simple concept of MVC. But in every story, there is a evil person. So at the beginning, it was Steve Jobs that destroyed my Flash career. And then, and then, you've seen this movie. I hope so. And then, you know, it started to be like a blown complexity. Because I remember when we used to just use script tags. I mean, most of you have built stuff like this. And when we used this, we thought a lot about, you know, how much JavaScript we want to put in the browser. Because of, you know, it's all about which script is loading first and how much JavaScript can we load, all right? And then we came up with automation to concat all of this and do other tasks. So if you remember, it started with gulp and grunt and all of these old automation tools. That's before Webpack. And then the evil entity called import, right? Now we can import everything from everywhere, and we don't think anymore about how much JavaScript we actually consume. And that's a problem. I mean, the first tip that we can already talk about is, well, before we start to import JavaScript, let's go back and think about how much JavaScript we actually consume. And generally speaking, what's wrong with MVC? So let's bring this person on. If you've never seen this wonderful talk, I highly encourage you to go ahead, look at YouTube. This is where React was introduced. Now, I like the concept because he was challenging MVC. He was challenging MVC and he's telling us why MVC it's not good enough for a specific problem that they had in Facebook. And then we started to use what we call today, we made up something, no? How we call it? Like component architecture, whatever it is. No model, no view, no controllers, no separation. Component, everything is a UI component. What is a component? I don't know. And because of this wonderful talk, we've got this wonderful library. How many libraries for state management do you know? Who knows more than, like, who's familiar with more than 3 different libraries to manage state? Raise your hand. Exactly, all right? Just to name a few, all right? So there's Mobix, there's the famous Redux. Now there's Recoil. And if you want to go old school state management, state machines, like finite state machines, Xstate is a valid solution. But we've got like tons of, like everyone, like there's something super strange. When I work with Java sometimes, and when I work with Ruby, you heard me? It was quiet. And when I work with Ruby on Rails sometimes, we use packages that was created like years ago. But in JavaScript, there is a state management library. You don't like the way it works? Let's build another one. We're all familiar with this problem. So let's summarize this whole nice story and introduction, all right? We used to send HTML to the browser, and that's it. And now we build micro frontends for multiple single-page applications that we build with different technologies, and then that's just for a starter, yeah? That's before all the tooling that we've got all around us. So it's state management, CSS and JS, module bundlers, yeah, you know, Bubble and Webpack and JavaScript compilers and TypeScript. And what's changed? For the people who build apps for the browser for years, do you build different type of application today? Well, some, yeah. Online editors and the browser can do much more. But a lot of B2B apps stay the same. I build the same dashboards that I built 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, it was much more clear to me how to do it. Today, I need to know a lot of stuff, and I'm a front-end developer. I don't even know what's going on the dark side, right? So, let's talk about BDD. What is BDD? Who wants to shout it out? What? No, it's buzz-driven development. This is the era of buzz-driven development. This is where we are as front-end developer. We make a decision based on a lot of stuff that's got nothing to do with actual, technical. So a new library introduced, there's a lot of buzz blog posts, speakers like me make noise about it. Hey, recall, that's the new stuff, blah, 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 blah. Everyone uses it, so let's use it, all right? But do we really need it? I don't know. I worked as a consultant for 7 years, and I worked with a lot of companies, and I've seen like every 3 years they rewrite some of their apps with new frameworks. You know why? Because of HR, for recruiting. It's got nothing to do with technical decision. Because if we still use AngularJS or Backbone or something old like this, we can't recruit. That's a problem, my friends. I can hear the backend developers like, that's not our problem. We're gonna sit here in the dark. So, keep it simple. I mean, originally it's keep it simple, stupid, but we don't use the word stupid, 2022. So it's keep it simple and straightforward. Keep it simple, and there's like other versions of it. But the main thing is let's think about, can we fix what we did? we made the front end very complicated profession. Let's see how we can fix it, if we can fix it. Now, if you never heard about KISS, it's a group of principles. It's more like food for thoughts. Again, we will see how we can practically maybe implement it in our system, but it's more like a way of thinking, a way of life. And it's also a very famous band. So if you're young and you're not familiar with this band, this is KISS. And KISS basically means most of our system work best if we keep them simple. Now, it's easy to say, it's hard to implement, because all of the reasons that we talked about up until now, buzz and recruiting and I don't know what, all right? So collection of principles to help us. So let's count a few of them. The first one is TMTOYTDI. Easy to remember, yeah? You don't even need to write it down. Actually, it's pronounced like Team Toady or something like this, but there's always more than one way to do it. The problem is that, it's not a real problem, but like conferences and YouTubes and blog posts, everyone got opinions. Specifically, if you like building apps for years, I've got my own opinions. I'm grumping right now, yeah? I'm complaining about everything, and I still keep my job. Opinions everywhere. So that's a quick introduction of where we are, yeah? Use this, don't use this. All the thought leaders, all the speakers, all the content creators, every day, use effect, don't use effect. Use Redux, don't use Redux. Use Recall, don't use Recall. Use React, don't use React, use Preact. Why? Because it's got P in its name. So things that I learned through my career is, first, there are no bad practices, there are only trade-offs. So I've got this schema. Someone tell me, hey, this is a bad or a best practice. And I ask him, can we measure this? If it's measurable, so it's got some technical aspects. So, okay. And even then, I should consider the trade-offs. I'm not taking it as is. It's a bad practice, I'm not going to do it. Well, if you can't measure it, so that's your personal preference. And again, personal preference might not have any effect on performance or runtime, but still there are some trade-offs. So eventually, in my schema, there are no bad or best practices. There are practices and trade-offs. And this is the first step that I believe that I did in my career in order to start simplify my day job. We all know about, trust me, I know everything. The next principle from this KISS collection is Yagni. You aren't going to need it. Don't add functionality until you actually necessary. In the Israeli high-tech industry, we've got a phrase that we like to say. It's like you build a room and then you just make holes in the wall because someday you might want to install air conditioning. It was a very bad translation, but I believe you got the idea. So it's like I'm sitting at my company and we start building a new product, but wait a second, we love infrastructures, yeah? Because we are modern front-end developers. Maybe someday we want to support our system offline. Maybe. So let's add layers of complexity up ahead, because one day we might want to do it. First step, let's completely ignore this, all right? npm install everything. I found in our source code a library that's called device detector, and we used one method called isMobile to detect if the user surf from mobile, right? This entire library was replaced with one line of code because we don't want to end up like this. My next tip, at least what I learned, is that we need to ask ourselves one simple question. What is our target browser these days? Because that's changed everything. That's changed which libraries we're going to use, how many layers of complexity we actually need, how many layers of abstraction we actually need. It's like a common question. Should I use fetch, native fetch, or should I use a library like Axios? Well, it depends. Axios, it's a few kilobytes, and fetch is native, and I might not need Axios if I don't need any interceptors or any other features, and I'm aiming for Chrome. Because a lot of startups today just aim for Chromium and that's it. So why would we, all right? And what about battery-included frameworks, all these mighty frameworks today? let's describe the ultimate framework, all right? The best framework ever. So no installation, no configuration, size should be 0, runtime dependency should be 0, documentation must be like complete heaven, community should be the biggest community ever, it probably should be in production for 25 years, and we would expect like 1-year cycle of updates, and yeah, we want to support all the modern browsers. And of course we want custom elements, and we want all of this buzz. So I created an example that might shock you. There is such a framework, here it is, and this framework called JavaScript, all right? This is just JavaScript, it's not even TypeScript, because JavaScript today, yes, you can use the class syntax, yes, you can use class property, private class properties, and you know what? You can even build components like this one. You can extend the HTML element, and you've got some life cycle that you can implement. All of these are plain, vanilla, modern JavaScript, right? No libraries, no dependencies, out of the box. We've got MDN, full documentation. And a lot of us, especially front-end developers, who just, you know, kind of born into this new era. So we know how to build complex apps with frameworks, and along the way, we miss the JavaScript today. We can write clean code with just JavaScript. I'm not saying that should be the way, but I learned that it's something that we should be aware of, because sometimes it can save us a lot of dependencies. So I'm going to share this as part of my my slides. So if you want to check it out, that actually works. That's app that works and can scale, because it's based on software development design patterns, not front-end. Back-end developers. You want me to continue? We can end it right now. Are you having fun? Not everyone answered. But you can't run away. You're stuck with me. And I'm going to take all the time that I have to continue this show. All right. Yes. Next, keep it lean. There's like a new buzzword in town, but I don't consider it as a buzzword. The lean stack means it's easy to add complexity, so instead of choosing a framework, let's use specific small libraries that do one task, then we can replace them, and then we have the flexibility to build our own stack. And people that use frameworks will say, no, but I've got everything out of the box, and I would say, yes, but you're not going to use all of this, so what's the point? It's like, you know, MacBook, it works, it's a closed system. I can't upgrade anything in this laptop. And if you remember, again, if you're old enough, we used to build it by ourselves. So you can replace the fan and you can upgrade the memory. Exact same thing. Like a common, a modern lean stack will be, I need a tiny library to build my UI. Preact. Preact is a tiny version, like implement the React API with 3 kilobytes. That's it. Same API will build you a wonderful UI. You get 0 learning curve if you're coming from React, but it's 3 kilobytes instead of the all overhead of React. State management, it's not exist. You don't really need the library. You need to go back to school. You need to remember, you know, practice classic design patterns. For state management, observable, you can use simple TypeScript classes. For utilities, there are a lot of, like, it's very trendy, like date functions, access, we talked about it, Lodash functional library, tiny functions that solve one problem if you need it. So this is how a lean stack would probably look like today, because you can replace everything. It's a dramatic pause. Right? It was like, feel the quiet, feel the tension in the air. You hear this? This is how an open space of backend developer sounds like. Soulless. My next tip, you know, high-level programming language is made for human. We all know this, but we tend to forget it. And we tend like to forget that readability is important. So which framework should I choose today? Angular or React? Who cares? What makes you feel more comfortable? What makes you write code which is more readable? Whether it's templates or JSX, consider your team, consider yourself, all right? Do the simplest thing that could possibly work. This is part of the KISS, DTS, TTT, CPW, which pronounce as how I do this on practice. I let junior developers to review my code. Because junior developers, people who just started with a career, they're fresh. They're like babies. They see things that we can't see because we do it for so long. So many times I wrote like, senior professional clean code, and then someone who just got started pointed this block and said, but why? I mean, you can just solve it with 2 if statements and you're done. You don't need RxJS observables and blah, 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 and he's right. So one of the practices that I practice today, this is not the kids that review my code. Yeah? This is just an illustration, disclaimer. All right, I don't know these kids. I let junior developers to review my code. We're about to end this dramatic session and talk about performance, because we've got obsession for we got too obsessive for performance. And performance is important, but it depends on the product. And it depends what's the price that you pay for performance. Because if you're building a back office for a bank, and your users are okay if it's going to take 1 second to load the entire system, you don't need to spend your time write complex code, complex your system, because performance is important and it must load in 2 seconds. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. So that's a thing that I learned. And I actually learned that some systems, they appear to be slow on purpose. Like I use this app to check my credit balance, and there is like a loader saying, I'm gathering all of your history or information, like years of payments and blah, 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 blah. You open the console log, you see the data is there immediately. But if you see the data immediately, you can't trust this app. So it's a nice UX trick to make you think that I'm gathering your entire history and it's, I'm doing some crazy stuff. So think about it next time, all right? And for the few Angular people that are around here, all right? Raise your hand. Yeah. No. Let's not get too excited, all right? Can we kiss with Angular? Yes. I'm not going to get too much in detail, but I do want to show you some sneak peek of something which is very, very unpopular. This is for the Angular developers. Look at this Angular app. I created models, which is plain TypeScript. I created view models, which are plain TypeScript. And I created a folder called views, which got pages, and each one of the components represent a page and depend on its view model. And what's the point of this piece of code? Just to give you, the Angular developers in the crowd, like a tip that we can think out of the box. In my company, one of our core products is built with clear boundaries, and Angular is just for rendering. Everything else, POJOs, plain JavaScript objects based on design patterns, and that's it. It's possible, and it actually works and scales only if we will learn that we can challenge best practices. Who tell us how an Angular project should look like? I don't know. All right, we got to the end of this soon. Just a few more slides, and we're done. All right, let's make it bigger. So, the last one, worse is better, right? Less is more. I didn't invent this. This is part of the collection of ideas. This is more like a high-level concept that a software that does a lot of things, it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily better than software that do something very specific. And again, I highly encourage you, if you're not familiar with these principles, go ahead. There's a lot of great books about it, and I'll share some links and references. Let's summarize together with a song. I'll start. No, I'm kidding. That's not going to happen, all right? So I built the same dashboards 10 years ago. When I built them 10 years ago, there wasn't such a thing as a front-end developer. I was a software developer that happened to build something that should run on the web. Like all the old people, once everything was simple, nothing was simple, but it was more clear. I had more knowledge about the stack, and I didn't have to learn a bunch of like tools to to solve the problems that I created. Technology trends change always. All right. As a front-end developer, first of all, we are software developers. If we remember this, it will help us think KISS, how to keep it simple, because trends are gonna change. If you remember, not so long ago, PHP developers were rock stars. Today, so let's end up by saying, for all the PHP developers, it's nothing personal, all right? I worked with PHP once. There are no bad practices. John Lennon never said, all right? Like we agreed before. So I hope you enjoyed this session. I would like to thank you to spending this half an hour with me. If you want to learn more about my strange life, you can visit Nir.life, where you can find a lot of slides, videos, and other references for more technical stuff and stuff like this. I'll be hanging around here, so if you want to talk about anything with a grumpy old developer, you are more than welcome. And thank you. Hope you enjoy. You took something from it. Thank you.